It's not desert season without a campfire or Chupacabra Offroad. Now, here's your host, Nick Olson.
What's happening, everybody? It's Nick Olson. Thank you guys for tuning in to Chupacabra, our first ever podcast. We're calling this thing Around the Campfire. And today I've got some integral members of the Chupacabra team. Got Andrew Garvey here from El Centro.
What's going on, guys?
And below me, we've got Wes Leffler coming to you guys live from Vegas, Nevada.
How's it going? Excited to be here.
So, we looked out there and we kind of looked at all the podcasts in the marketplace and figured that, iTunes needed another podcast. So we figured we'd create one, there's not enough. But we just wanted to kind of share some of our stories here. I think for this first one, we're going to launch this one on my birthday. And I'm the one that created the brand. But I thought it'd be fun to kind of go back to the beginning of all of our roots, kind of how all we know each other and how we got all addicted to this passion of playing in the dirt and off-roading. So I'll start us off. That's where I met Wes, speaking of Las Vegas. That's where I'm born and raised as well. And growing up in the Southwest, you kind of like always had an inkling of being around like the desert lifestyle, like as many of you guys probably know, Las Vegas has a really rich history in off-road racing, off-roading. I wouldn't say the richest history in dirt biking. There was the World Minis back when we were kids. But basically, off-road, dirt, desert lifestyle was really what it was when you grew up in the Southwest, like all three of us. But as a youngster, I started off as early memory, my dad taking me down to Fremont back in the day for the MIT 400, back when they ran the MIT 400 on the other side of town compared to where they run it today. But that was kind of my early roots and kind of growing up with a dad that was always into, Jeeps, dirt bike type of stuff. And as I got a little bit older, my uncle got into dirt bike racing. This is mid-90s, so we're talking Best in the Desert. As many of you guys probably heard of that racing association. Well, back in the day, it was just bikes. So, before all the cars and all that type of stuff, trucks and such. So we would go and chase my uncle on all these races. It was really exciting, get together, many times a year. And my dad teamed up with them for a couple of races, like Vegas to Reno, all that stuff. I think we're talking like 96-ish. So as a youngster going around being involved in all those races, I always thought it was really interesting and exciting. And then as I got a little bit older, my kind of passion for dirt turned into two-wheel dirt, mountain biking. So it was definitely something that I could afford. I got my first legit mountain bike when I was about 15-ish. And instantly kind of became addicted to mountain biking and more so like the adrenaline type, downhill type racing type stuff, which I was into, coming from like BMX, hitting dirt jumps, building jumps, having fun with your buddies and stuff. So that was kind of like my early days of getting completely encapsulated in this passion of playing in the dirt. So fast forward a little bit, got heavy into mountain bike racing. And then a couple years later, I want to say 17, 18, I met Wes. And we had a group of friends that we all connected. And I'll let Wes tell the story, but, I went to a different high school, but Wes and a lot of the gang that we all became tight riding buddies and racing buddies were all kind of from other high schools. So, Wes, how'd you get linked up with this dirt lifestyle and then the whole group?
Yeah, I was thinking about it today, actually, and realized how old I was. It was 1997, everyone, so a long time ago. And I met Nick, I was probably around September of that year. We were all a big group of friends from a different high school that Nick went to, but we kind of knew him from a bike shop that everybody in this crowd worked at. No matter who you were, you worked at this shop at one time of your life. And we were racing, not downhill at that time, we were racing cross-country mountain bikes. I mean, we were really into it, and we had a race every other week that we thought was like the biggest thing ever here, local series here in Vegas, which led us down the road to opening our eyes to bigger series back out in California. And also led us on to leaving cross country because it wasn't really that fun once we got riding into downhill. And once we got into the downhill scene, it seemed like that was just life. I mean, we lived paycheck to paycheck with our jobs, saved every penny we could to buy this one part or to afford to go to a race or everything. I just remember that the biggest treat for us after a race was being able to afford to go and eat Olive Garden. And we thought we had made it at that point, going from eating, dollar menu to we were able to have enough money to eat Olive Garden after our races. And, we did that for a few years. We traveled a lot. We were going down to what is now the Southridge down in Fontana, and we raced that series 20 years ago. It was great. We loved it. Met a lot of people. We actually had a little team that we had together that wasn't sponsored really by anybody, but we were the life of the party down at those races, and we all just became really good friends, which the majority of us are still really good friends today. Maybe not as many are into the off-road scene as much as Nick and I are, but yeah, we went from there, and I mean, I'll let Nick continue on from there, but yeah, I mean, I remember those days and how much fun we used to have just riding our bikes. Our bikes were worth way more than our vehicles at the time. That's a pretty sad part.
Yeah. The Southridge series still going on today. Don Jackson and those guys down in Fontana, which is really cool. And the big series back then was Norba. I'm a little bit older than Wes, but like right when I got into it, mountain biking was really big. ESPN launched ESPN2. X Games was big. A lot of corporate sponsors. You probably remember, Wes, like Jeep, Acura, Coca-Cola, a lot
Cadillac
of brands. Volvo were into mountain biking. It was really, really cool for a while, and then it started to kind of fan off in terms of overall popularity, being on TV and whatnot. But it was fun. We did a lot of racing up in Big Bear, and like Wes said, we got into the downhill stuff because it was probably the closest thing to dirt biking and going fast and more aggressive. And there wasn't much of that in Southern Nevada really until Bootleg Canyon came along in Boulder City. So I've been a lot of road trips down to Southern California and Southern Utah even and stuff like that. So those good old days. We had a lot of fun racing, eating Pop-Tarts for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So Andrew, what were your first days? I know, eventually I'll get into the story in a minute. We met riding racing dirt bikes, but walk us through early Grom El Centro, Andrew.
Early Grom El Centro. So I grew up here in Pearl Valley, where now I reside here. But I started off as a 6-year-old kid, getting my first bike, a KX60. My dad taking me out to the desert and just having fun riding, sitting by the campfire, camping. We did the desert lifestyle for the longest time. By the time when I was in the 8th grade, I started racing dirt bikes out here, AMA Disc 38. Started racing, started riding a lot more. But it was just more of a passion than anything, getting in the desert, just being out there. Growing up here, I'm so close to Superstition, Ocotillo Wells, Glamis. I'm pretty much 20 minutes from Superstition, Placer City, about 45 to an hour to Ocotillo Wells, and about 45 minutes to Glamis. So kind of grew up in the mecca of off-roading. Grew up going Ocotillo Wells, of course, Shell Reef, all that stuff, crossing the desert on a KX85. It just kind of stuck with me until I moved to San Diego after high school. And that's kind of where to chase my dream in the motorcycle industry, which I spent about 10 years doing that. And that's where Nick and I ran into each other. I was working at Motor World at the time as an accessories associate, pretty much just selling gear, boots, whatever, started talking to Nick, and we started riding moto together, motocross, Paula, and then we started racing and just became really good friends. So
Yeah. So in between the time, like from the mountain bike days with Wes, late teenagers, early 20s, kind of quit racing mountain bikes, got burnt out on it, finished school, and then moved to Northern California, got a job with Fox Racing. So my first job in the industry, I guess, if you will, and was a sales rep. So I was up in Northern California for 3 years, which is where I met my wife. And then my wife and I moved down to Southern California in 2009, San Diego, right in the middle of the big recession, as you guys are probably a lot of recall. It was tough selling motocross gear and stuff that people didn't need in 2009.
Right. I think I was still in high school in 2009.
But then, with the market really shrinking because of the recession, I was lucky enough to get promoted and move to Southern California, where, of course, guys are going to ride moto no matter what. At least still back then, the scene is, as most of you guys know, been around motocross. Temecula is still, in my opinion, ground zero, of course, in the United States for motocross and motocross culture. And, we made it through that tough year. And then Andrew and I, we met just kind of like rubbing elbows and, hey, you ride? Let's go ride. We had Paula, my favorite track still to this day. I mean, I rode Zaka Station, which a lot of people think is amazing, and it is.
That's a hard one. I'd have to agree that Zaka Station is probably one of the best motocross tracks I've ever ridden.
Yeah, any track you have to. Yeah, any track you have to sign in to get into, and it's like you go in and you're like, man, this can't be that good, and then you get there and you're like, oh my goodness, this is the greatest place ever. for moto, and I suck at moto really. So I'm a C-class rider. So
And Zach is gorgeous, but for me, Paula, it opened up like a few months after I moved to San Diego, and it was like 30 minutes from my front door. I lived in North County essentially, and I was lucky enough to get to ride there for free for quite a bit. And my wife got into riding. We got her a little clapped out TTR 230 off Craigslist, taught her how, and man, those are some of the best days. And then I was all of our buddies from Vegas. We would all hang out still, even though we moved, and get together a couple times a year to race. And then I convinced Andrew after start riding. Andrew, what do you think about doing a works race, man? Let's go to the Speed World out in Surprise, and let's go do Kahia, and let's go do Pala, and let's go do
Glen Helen.
all the races that are, if you guys are familiar with works racing, it's pretty much all Southwest, Havasus, Brutal. Did that race several times, and got heavy into the moto scene myself, just kind of working and living in the culture of Fox, which was an amazing culture at the time I worked for them. Think about before the recession, but 05, 06, 07, we had Ricky Carmichael and James Stewart. We got to interact with these guys. Jeff Emick was always around these sales meetings, and just that energy of a lot of people who, even if they didn't ride, they're really passionate about the brand and passionate about moto. It was an amazing experience to work for those guys, and really, really enjoyed it. And then when Andrew and I kind of linked up in Southern California, I always rode 450s. The biggest mistake I ever made is my first bike was a 252 stroke, and I never really learned how to carry momentum in a corner. I wish I would have got a 125, but either way, I sold my 450s finally because I kept getting arm pump about a 250F, and that's when Andrew and I first started riding heavy, and I had so much fun on that bike. I had this pimped out Yamaha 250F with Gucci forks and carbon hubs and all this stuff, and we rode Paula all the time. It was good days.
Good times, good times.
But we rode some moto for a while, did some racing and whatnot, and then at the time, Wes, you obviously rode mountain bikes growing up, like we discussed, but you got heavy into sand dune riding.
Yeah. So after my mountain bike days were over, when I realized that wasn't going to be it anymore, I went and got into the quad riding. Don't judge me, I understand, but I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Being part of a family that was mainly into quads and mainly into sand dune riding and stuff. We spent, countless days and weeks in the sand dunes, whether it's Coral Pink or over at Dumont. We also ended up doing a lot of trails, like off-roading trails in Utah, central southern Utah, the Paiute trails, which we would do hundreds of miles in 3 days, and enjoyed that all on four wheels, which for me, it was a really hard transition to go from 4 to 2. I'm now being back to 4, but once I did that transition, and you go through the learning curve of riding a dirt bike, there's nothing like riding a dirt bike. My first bike was, I sold my quad, TRX 450 that was pimped to the moon. I gave this guy the incredible deal. I sold it in the parking lot of the Thomas and Mack Center here in Vegas. Took that money immediately out to Blue Diamond, which is on the west side of Vegas Valley here, and gave that money to a guy for an 07 RMZ 450, and I was excited. And then that bike ended up being nothing but a lemon. I think I rebuilt it twice in 3 months, and from then I kind of found my way into getting some really nice bikes through a mutual friend we have that BP. He would like to get a new bike every year, and he was very meticulous, more of we call him track queen. And I was able to pick up a couple of bikes over my time having motorcycles from BP, and I just loved it. There's nothing like a bike once you get it mastered, and once you feel the freedom of riding a motorcycle off-road, it's just amazing. It's just, I still miss it today. My garage though is full of four-wheel vehicles, so I can't really pressure to get another toy right now, but I'm always thinking about getting another dirt bike for sure.
Yeah, man, dirt bike life. As long as I'm walking, I always want to have one in my garage. And I just watch his moto. I was watching moto from Reddit the other day, just thinking geez, I got to get on my bike. And in Arizona, I've been getting skunked with no monsoon rains. Usually this time of year, we'll get some hard rains, and I'm not riding in the desert to get a little reprieve from the heat. But I'll get back on her soon. But talking moto, during this whole process, we're growing up, we're falling in love, getting married, having kids. For me personally, I didn't have kids yet, but working for Fox, I kind of felt like there wasn't a lot of upward mobility for me. And in the back of my mind, I really wanted to start a business, and would rack my brain for years, coming from biking, moto. I didn't think I could find an idea in which, I could start a business that would potentially work. But um, at this time, now we're talking 2012. I had rented a Razor 900, took out to Glamis once. Won a trip to go ride with Ricky Carmichael, and Ricky Carmichael in Florida had a 4-seat Razor 900. Got to ride in it, and I was like paying close attention to the side by side market because the off road routes is like we all wanted to off road, but like none of us could really afford pre runners, let alone keep them up. And of course, growing up in the desert, the terrain's nasty and harsh, so I had this wannabe pre runner Toyota with a 3-inch lift and front fenders and 30-inch tires. And one day we thought, oh, we're going to go pre-run the snore track. And we pre-ran, and then I was ready to throw up after a half an hour. It was so bad. So it's one of those things is like we wanted to go fast in the desert in 4 wheels. It just, we couldn't afford it. It wasn't what it was. But I always felt like, as the side-by-side thing started to mature, I mean, don't get me wrong, like in my dirt bike days, we'd see guys with pimped out rhinos, like at a best in desert race. I'm like, who would spend 40 grand on a rhino? Like, it looked like a joke to me. And then they kept getting better and better. And I think remember when I saw the video for the Razor 900 release and it had trailing arms,
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay.
No power steering.
Yeah, that plain red plastic. And then getting to ride in one, I rented a 2-seater, took it to Glamis, thing kicked like a banshee going through sand highway whoops and stuff, but it still went everywhere. We did some real dune rides, which was rad. And then, kind of fast forward, and as I'm talking about my career, an opportunity for Polaris jumped up. So I was lucky enough to get hired for Polaris, which was really cool because I was, I really felt like the side-by-side industry was about ready to explode. And keep in mind, this is September 2013. So in July, Polaris just launches the Razor XP 1000. And if you guys have been around the sport, everyone knows that car was the legit game changer in the side-by-side industry. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you don't even like Polaris. That car changed the game. For
sure.
100%.
It changed everything.
Yeah,
my father-in-law still owes one.
It's still an amazing car. My dad's got one, and it's got 3,500 miles on it. But I feel like that level of leap in performance. I think it went from 88 horsepower to 107. The wheelbase with bigger trailing arms and the 18 inches of travel, and then seeing right from the showroom floor with the 30-inch mongrel tires was like okay. And I think a lot of people felt that. And I remember I jumped on board with Polaris and. Literally my first event was the sand show before the 4-seater got released. And then that first Camp Razor, when the 4-seater came out, the 4-seat Razor XP 1000 was literally the best thing since sliced bread in the Southwest.
I can still remember your first one. And you came out and you brought it out to Vegas, and it was kind of like you're watching your firstborn kid. Like you're like really nervous, like super nervous about letting anybody drive it and stuff like that. And I'm like, even me, I was like, I knew how much it cost. I'm like, I'll just ride passenger. I'm good, man. I don't need I can't afford to fix a tire on this thing, but.
Then we put 4 adults in it, and we went over the race course in jeans.
Yeah, let's go ride the mint course.
The bottom of the skid plate, worst I've ever done it.
Put that metal skid plate into the transmission.
Oh yeah. So that was cool. That was probably the best part of the job with Polaris. One of them for me was the perk was a demo vehicle, and then a gas card to go use it and enjoy it. So that was really cool. And then obviously the sport, has just exploded, and so many people were probably like us, kind of grow up in the desert, and life goes on, or maybe you're new to the desert, or you want to share the experience with your wife or your girlfriend or your kids. It's easy to see now if you guys have been around the market, or even if you're new to it, that all these motorcycle dealerships are now, side-by-side dealerships. They need so much more space. They need like a car lot, especially here in the Southwest, because they're all selling 4-seat vehicles. So, just the whole landscape of power sports has dramatically changed. Even from 2013, it's just so many guys like us who were like dirt bike, hardcore junkies, if you will, and just kind of wanting to get one, or seeing all the hype is about. And it's just been amazing the transformation since I was in Glamis in 2010 even to now.
Yeah, from when that first Razor was released, the 1000 is what I'm talking about. When that was released to now, in those 7 little years, it's pretty crazy to think how far the technology has come from now. Because I mean, if I saw a guy with one of those now, I'd be like, oh man, Right, time to upgrade, like you're missing out on this, you're missing out on this, and all this technology that we deal with now is just amazing. And it's crazy to think, where is it going to be, in 2027? What are we going to be talking about? I'll probably still have my same Turbo S, and everybody will be making fun of me thinking it's a clapped out piece of junk. But it's really, really cool to watch. And I think that, as you look at different off-road sports and you look at side-by-side game, it seems like it's grown way faster than any other sport. Motorcycles are around forever, quads around forever, but it just seems like the technology and the amount of money and support and companies getting in on this thing is just crazy, 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 crazy. And I don't see any sign of stopping anytime soon, because people want them, people buy them, and it's something you can do with your family, friends. It just makes more sense. You can go spend 10 grand on a dirt bike or 30 grand on a razor, but the 30 grand on a razor can be for 4 people. Your 10,000 on your dirt bikes for you and you alone. You still got to find something to do with your family and your friends.
Yeah,
exactly. Going with Wes's idea, a family of 4, 2 Raptors and 2 kids quads, you're right there about 20-25 grand just in quads. But you can buy a vehicle that can go do anything and put your family and still be safe and still go have a lot more fun and be a lot smoother to ride.
Yeah. So Andrew, I know Wes's story when he got hooked to the side by side, but I want to hear your story first, because we were riding dirt bikes, and you ended up getting a Razor 1000 as your first car. So how did that transition happen for you?
So basically, the transition happened when Nick started working for Polaris. He hit me up one day and he was like, "Hey, I don't have anybody to go out there with. Do you want to go drive Razors today?" I'm like, I don't have one. At the time, I couldn't afford one. So I was like, sure, why not? Let's go. So I think it was Temecula Motorsports, Madigan Poker Run is the first one we went out to. Nick had an Ace. He also had his turbo, the 2016 turbo on 32-inch tires, and let me tell you, those tires looked huge on that thing.
The orange one?
Yeah, the orange 2016. I was like one of the first in the game with the 32s. I was all about it. And then
he had put
them on 8-inch wide wheels, so they look nice.
had the nice Fox internal bypass shocks, sprung, revalved, everything, ready to go for that thing.
The rings were like in the wrong.
No. So we go on a ride. He's driving his little Ace 900, and he's getting beat to crap out in Ocotillo Wells, and I'm driving this thing, and we come to a stop, and my smile is ear to ear. So pretty much he's the one that got me hooked. I had driven a couple 800S back in high school when they first started coming out, and it really changed the game then, from going from a Rhinos to even the 800S was a big game changer. The 800S was a pretty good, decent car, and would, take you across the desert at a pretty decent pace. And, but yeah, the day Nick got me was hook, line, and sinker, man. He got me. So after that, I kept riding moto, couldn't afford one in the position I was in. And then I met my wife back then. She was my girlfriend, of course, but her dad is big into razors. He's got 3 of them at this point. So we started going out to the desert, started going to Glamis, Thanksgiving, doing all the big stuff. And me and her finally pulled the trigger on a 2016 non-turbo 2-seat. And that was my first razor. And ever since then, it's been always evolving, it never ends. So
yeah, he's got one of the most Gucci razors in the whole Southwest.
So
speaking of hook, line, and sinker, I didn't really, I knew that day when out riding, you were ear to ear grinning, and it was super fun. But I do remember a similar occurrence a little bit later on. I know Wes, like I said, was like he told you, he was always into duning. He even did quad trips all up in Oregon, right? One year.
Yeah. We took motorcycles and quads up to Oregon sand dunes. I remember my family, we were all on quads, and it was kind of like I had to ask for permission to bring my dirt bike at the time, because they were like quad guys, But yeah, we did that. And fast forwarding, I can tell you the story. Same thing. It's all Nick's fault. Everybody can blame Nick. My bank account can blame Nick, but I guess I can also blame a lot of happy trips memories on Nick though too. So he kept telling us, hey, come on out. I have these 2 cars. Because working at Polaris, he had the 2-seater and the 4-seater. and it was right as the 2016 four-seater came out. There was 2 of them there at Glamis on New Year's. So we go out as a family. I brought a couple quads with, did the whole Camp for Fun trailer. First time in Glamis.
Sorry to cut you off real quick. Like, was this your first time at Glamis? And you've been like a sand
First
jumper
time.
your whole life, and for whatever reason,
Yeah.
Vegas don't really go to Glamis. It's the weirdest thing. But either way, sorry, first trip to Glamis.
Yeah, so like Glamis was always like I'd go to San Felipe for family trips down on Thanksgiving, and we'd go through Glamis, and there was something about it. You'd always hear the horror stories of people dying and people getting killed, you know. So you always associated with it like, don't go to Glamis or you're gonna die. And this was my first trip to Glamis, New Year's 2016. So 2015 turned into 2016, and like I said, Nick he had the 2-seater. The orange one that Andrew was talking about, and then he just barely had picked up his 4-seater turbo. First turbo out, and he's like, "Come out, just bring lots of gas. You know, we're gonna go have some fun." So we took him up on the offer, went out, and between that Wednesday and that Sunday, something just changed. There's something fun about back then. I mean, it's definitely not the case now. Is going down the drags in that 4-seater. And everybody has the non-turbo 1000s, and I only saw one other one, and people know how many people are there on New Year's. Only saw one other 4-seat turbo, and we were just dragging everybody, like anybody in a side-by-side. I mean, we were the kings of the dunes. Kids loved it, and it was so that was January. I think it was March, like 17th or something like that. I took delivery of my first RZR, and then again we drove down, picked it up in San Diego, and the first trip we went straight from there. I put the harnesses in Nick's driveway, and put the paddles on, and we freaking trucked right to Glamis. Went to Glamis and spent 2 days in Glamis again in March.
Broke
her in Glamis, and still have that same car. Obviously, it doesn't look the same. I mean, I've done everything that I can think of doing to it. I love that car, and about 6,500 miles later, I can't think of the endless trips and fun times that I've had, not only with friends, but family, and whether it's off-road or Mexico or anywhere that we've done in this thing. It's just amazing. And I talk a lot about it with the wife sometimes, and we just think, man, we spend a lot of money, and some people don't understand the amount of money you spend on these things, but we wouldn't trade any of that for anything, the amount of memories we have. And now that the kids are getting older and they're learning how to drive, it's, and having 2 vehicles now, it's amazing. So yeah, I mean, hook, line, and sinker. Nick got me just like you got Andrew. Like, hey, come out here. It's fun. It's gonna be free. You're gonna love it. Just bring gas. And then, here we go.
Yeah, I remember sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
I do remember popping the tire of that 32-inch Mogul. I hit the sidewall and blew it out. Felt so bad. I was like, how am I gonna afford this tire?
That doesn't sound like you at all, Andrew. What are you talking about?
And I was nervous too when Wes drove one of the RZRs that first weekend, because he duned, and people know how to dune, but your first time going through Glamis is a little nerve-wracking. I mean, we had a good group. We have an amazing group that we dune with, and they are so awesome. They lead the best rides, and they can pick up the pace if there's those of us that can do it, and they'll go chill out. But Wes was like right behind everybody the whole time. It's like his culture, like their crew, they're like right next to each other. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? This guy's like in a VA car, and you're like right in his dust. Like, give him a break, man. And he did good that whole weekend. And that was cool to see you guys.
I can remember a couple close calls, and I remember hitting one pucker bush, and that and then one witch eye with the kids in it. But other than that, it was amazing. Like, it was a fun trip. Like you said, we have a great group of people that we go to the dunes with. You guys all know who you are, and man, it's fun to just hook onto them and go. We have some of the best rides ever. And jumping back into the whole Glamis, being afraid to go there thing, it wasn't until I went that first time that I realized that Glamis is the ultimate sand playground. There's nothing compared. I live in Vegas, Dumont's. I can be in Dumont in an hour and a half. I can be at other places even closer than that. And I would much rather drive the 5 hours that it takes me to get to Glamis than drive the hour and a half to Dumont. It's just hands down the best riding, especially for side-by-side owners. You guys all understand. Endless bowls. I mean, Dumont's fun and all, but it's just a lot of steep dunes, and I think it's more convenience. But, and I love me some Glamis.
Going towards Glamis is, I grew up in El Centro, only 45 minutes away, and never once did my parents take me to Glamis. Never once did they take me. I didn't go to Glamis until I met my girlfriend, now my wife back in 2015 was my first time going to Glamis.
Dang.
And I only lived 45 minutes away growing up.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And
now
speaking
I'm hooked.
Yeah, and 2015, I think it was a couple of years later, 2017, we all linked up with some other friends, and we did the year before in 2016. I did this 500-mile Baja ride with a couple that does tours, Baja bound, and I was like, guys, you guys got to come to Baja. The worst mile in Baja is like probably better than the best mile of most places I've off-roaded, hard pack stuff. So 2017, the vehicles you guys just described, we all went down there. Parked basically right at the border in Tecate. And what did you guys think of your first 500 miles in Baja, 3-day trip?
I was so nervous that first 20 minutes that we rolled into Tecate right there and we got pulled over. I was like, I'm going to jail. I don't know what's going on. I was freaking out. I was like, don't go down to Mexico much, but I was freaking out. I was telling my wife, she was trying to tell me, hey, calm down. Everything's going to be fine. So it was a great trip. It was a little on the warm side, but it just going from the valleys over the top of the mountains to the coast, and you could actually feel the air just go 20 degrees cooler. It was the best feeling ever. But some of those dirt roads just, hauling the mail down it, you don't get anything better than that.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. There's just nothing like Baja. Baja is the place. And, Nick set it up, and he had went the year before with the Mortons and Baja bound. And, I had become friends with the Mortons through other off-road means. And it just worked out, and we went. And, they're a great group of leading. They know every trail. I mean, and not just like by the trail name, they know it by like, hey, turn left at the yellow fence post. You'll see it. It has a beer can on the top of it. Those type of directions. And, we put some miles in. That second day out of the 3 days, I think, what do we do? Like 180 miles of Baja. Ended up staying up at Mike's Sky Ranch. I knew at all these places, and I knew about all these places, but I was like, hey, I never really went to those places and on these trails, and man, it just doesn't disappoint. Had a great time, great group of people, very few little mechanicals, and yeah, it was a little warm on the warm side, but I look back at those pictures and the time that we had, man, I just can't wait to get back down there and do another fun trip like that. It was awesome.
Well, talk about that more, Wes. I mean, yeah, you said it was like your first time, but you had been to Baja a bunch because you were involved with a trophy truck race team as a pit guy. So you've been down at this point in the mix of getting your RZR. I don't remember before or after you get involved in off-road racing as a pit support guy.
Yeah, so back in 2014, a good friend of mine was working for Baldwin Motorsports here in Las Vegas and asked me to go to the 1,000. So I was like, yeah, I have the time off. Sure, let's go. And kind of similar to the story with getting hooked on the RZR, I got hooked on Mexico and off-road. Being a part of a trophy truck team, if any of you guys have done that, it's just amazing. It's a complete different experience, especially a higher-end trophy truck team that's well-funded. You go down there, you get to experience so much all the time. And it was shortly thereafter that I actually, so that was 2014. So about a year and a half later that I ended up getting a side-by-side. And at that point, I made a bunch of contacts, and, people had helped me to learn more about how to fix my RZR and, accessories to get and things like that. But I spent a lot of time down in Mexico and a lot of time chasing the race and knowing all these roads and all these things and just knowing the stories, never racing, never really going on too many of the dirt roads. Did a little bit of a pre-run stuff in San Felipe, but that's what I was most excited about with this trip that we went on, because finally I could put all the talk to the side and be like, okay, I've been there, Mike's Sky Ranch and staying at Horsepower, and, a really, really good buddy of mine that was running the team at the time, Willie Valdez, who I owe a lot of my knowledge to because he taught me a lot of stuff about Baja. It's fun to come back and have conversations with him and tell him about this trail and that trail. And he's telling you, remember, and you get to here and there's that big rock, or, you got to make sure you don't go left, because if you go left, and it just put it all together for me. And, as Andrew was saying, getting down onto the coast, going south and just flying on those roads, and now knowing, okay, so this is what the race truck was doing. This is the course that the race truck was doing. And if I remember right, you might correct me, but we went on a lot of the 500 course because it just got over. Like they had just finished it down in Arendera and stuff like that, and we were able to actually ride on the course, and it was just such a great time. And I learned so much. I still have that Baja itch and still want to go down and still continue to do that. Obviously, where society is now, it's kind of a little bit different with all the races getting a little bit, getting canceled and stuff like that. But yeah, man, I can't say it again. I mean, there's nothing like Baja. You can talk about all these different places and stuff. It's just something magical about Baja. I know people that have been and they get a little nervous here, like Andrew was saying. It was pretty funny what he's talking about with getting pulled over. Seriously, we're 5 minutes on our ride, just crossed the border, and if you guys know the Mexican police down there, some of them just are just looking for tips. Well, our tour leader wasn't really keen on giving him a tip because we could have been out of there in probably like 2 minutes, but he was more like fighting it because he'd never been stopped before, and I get it. But after that, it was smooth sailing and such a great time.
Yes,
Yeah, for those of you guys that know Baja, we started off up in Tecate. We went into Horsepower Ranch outside of Ensenada for day one. Day two was a long pull, like Wes was saying, 180, went out to the coast of Arendera, Colonet, and then shot back across and stayed at Mike's Sky Ranch. We had a weird heat wave that weekend. And guys, don't ever stay at Mike's Sky Ranch. Like, it was the power shut off. They didn't have a fan. There was no breeze. The only thing good about staying at Mike's Sky Ranch was the tequila they make was really smooth. But I remember like at mile 150, I was like, please, I hope they clean that pool out. I am just ready to do a huge cannonball in that pool.
Nope.
And, we couldn't do that.
And we got there and it was, oh man.
Yeah. And then
some funny stories about that is the fact that, I was looking forward to the pool too, but then there was a whole dirt bike crew that got there like 2 hours before us, and they basically took a bath in it. So it was terrible. And then as Nick said, the power goes out. Everybody knows he runs off generator, and lights out at 11. It's like prison, they shut it down. And I remember it being so hot. And I think it was your dad, Nick, that ended up like going to get one of the bath towels wet and put it on top of him to keep him cool throughout the night. I got up in the middle of the night and I'm fanning the door open and closed, trying to just cool off a little bit. But then you get in the shower and you're like, oh, at least the shower, no, ice cold, like from 1,000 feet underground, ice cold, or they put ice on it. It was crazy, but it was the experience. The Mike's Sky Ranch is, it's good. It's a good lunch spot.
Yeah. But, the experience, like you said, I mean, because of the side-by-side that we were able to go down there and click off 180 miles a day, 500 in a week in 3 days with, I don't know, a belt failure, a flat tire, out of a group of like 10 cars. It's just,
radius rod.
We would never be able to do that. Yeah, I think I bent a radius rod. And just how fast we're able to go. And I've been on racedesert.com since I was a youngster in college. Like, my dream is to have this V8 sand rail or a V8 pre-runner, not a sand rail, but like I want a real V8 pre-runner, like a Desert Dynamics, right? I'm going to go down to Baja. It's got 35-inch tires, my dream car. And after running Baja a couple of times and they're side-by-side, it's like, these trails are a lot tighter than I thought they would be. I can't believe these big wide cars, even wider than a 10, like a trophy, how they even go through some of the stuff. And now it makes sense why these little buggies just eat them up. These 16 cars run so good, and why a side-by-side is like probably the best, for sure, the best play car vehicle you could want to go down there in.
Well, your trophy truck teams now are pre-running the side-by-sides. It's because they can see more, and the maintenance is easier, and they can bring two of them for the price that they can bring one of their hundreds of thousands of dollars a pre-runner.
Even if that, half the price of a pre-runner.
Yeah. So needless to say, we're head over heels for this thing at this point, in 2017. And then right around that time is when I kind of figured I'm going to start figuring out how to start a business here at Chupacabra Offroad. And ironically, I was listening to a lot of podcasts, these technology podcasts. Like, I think I had the logo made in 2013, and I was before we were going to start to sell products, I was going to make an app, or I was going to pay somebody to make an iOS app for $40,000, back in 2014 when everybody wanted to make an app, right? And thank goodness my wife talked me out of that harebrained idea. But it's funny, like, you see the content like we're doing right now, and in general, the first premise was to like take the community and put them together and have them help each other out. Because one thing I realized, a lot of these products, accessories, these vehicles, there's no reviews on them. Andrew, you're going to go spend $2,000 on tires. Well, there's not 100 Amazon reviews. It's like, hey, did so and so, or is this and that? And this sport being so new, it wasn't like moto, it wasn't like mountain bikes, where these sports are so mature, and we know exactly what we want our, how our forks revalved, and this is a whole new marketplace where guys are spending a lot more money than the two-wheel game, but they just don't know what to buy and what's good. And it reminded me, Wes, of like the early mountain bike days when Wes and I were mountain biking. There was the downhill bikes were getting weird and wild, and went to 4 inches of travel to 6 to 8 to 10 to 12. And then it's like, okay, that's too much travel and these stupid tires and this crazy geometry and these wacky parts. But it was like a really cool point in time where people were trying to make all kinds of random cool stuff. And I kind of feel like that's what's happening now. You see some of these products that are like, they'll probably never work. They probably won't be around in 5 years, but it's like the market's on fire. So people are going to try to make cool stuff.
Right.
So, then I start the synthesis of like, hey, okay, maybe building an app and hiring a technical co-founder is a little bit, that's kind of a harebrained scheme that we're going to get so many users. And that translates into kind of testing this theory of the business of like, hey, if we start selling products on Amazon is the way most of us now want to buy, or it kind of governs our buying conditions for anything, right? Because we're checking Amazon for the best price, and we also have the reviews. And like, Mark Cuban said on Shark Tank, trusted curation is the future. So I launched Chupacabra with one mirror on Amazon, and started collecting reviews. And then it just kind of snowballed into a couple products, and then basically just quit my job and went at it full time. Fast forward to January 2018. So from there, it's like, okay, we gotta be, creating content. We gotta let people know who we are, as we hopefully build up more sales and sell more products, so we can launch more products. In the meantime, we're not going to sit on our hands and hope people find out about us. We're going to start creating content.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast it's moved. I mean, this train is really going down the tracks fast. And, I can still think about, when you said you were doing that and you were launching the products and things like that. And I couldn't believe how fast it picked up. And it's just a testament to the side-by-side community and how much people are interested in this, because you're not the only one that offers these products, and for them to choose your products or Chupacabra products in general, it's, there's got to be, a good brand behind it, but there's a lot of different selections. So it's just, the numbers are crazy. I mean, I can't remember what you used to say, but that first year or the second year of the Polaris, the original 1000 NA car in San Diego alone, the number was just crazy on how many that were sold in that first year. And you figure, what's the first thing these people do once they buy it? They start buying more stuff for it. They start buying more accessories for it, things to make it personal and their own car. And man, open the floodgates.
Yeah, they kind of become the new Harley Davidson. Everyone's going to accessorize them, for their personal taste, but also just for the basics, man. I mean, before the X3, your choices for a high-end side-by-side was a red Razor or a blue Razor, and you needed a roof, right, Andrew? You needed tires. You needed
a cage,
a lot of these
seats.
Things. Yeah,
harnesses, fire extinguishers, coolers, intercom. The list goes on and on. You can accessorize these things from mild to wild. You can spend $5,000 and you'll have a decent looking car. Well, I like to say plain and simple, but still super reliable on the trail. Or you can go spend $30,000-$40,000 on one of these things and make it super Gucci, and it's still going to perform just as good as that, spending $5,000 on accessories, spring kit, wheels and tires. You're still going to be able to do 50, 55 miles an hour across the desert on one of these things.
I remember back then, you think about, like, wouldn't it be crazy if Honda made a sport side by side, or Kawasaki? Could you imagine? And Yamaha too. I actually had to call out Andrew that day he talked about when we went out to the desert at Ocotillo and he drove the turbo. Andrew was like, hook, line, and sinker, I'm going to go buy a YXZ. It was like, YXZ had been out for like 3 or 4 months, and it was like, oh my gosh, Yamaha.
You can shift it. You can shift it. Doesn't have a belt. It doesn't have a belt. And then I drove one, and it's the biggest hunk of crap I've ever driven.
Hey, let's not be mean to Yamaha. I mean, let's think about it for a second. If it wasn't for Yamaha, do you think we'd even be here like right now? I mean, honestly, they took the brunt of it. I mean, Nick and I, we know somebody that was part of one of those, infamous, Rhino incidences and things like that. And imagine if those incidences never happened, where we would be. I think that's slowed it down, going back to 2005, 2004. And then they started having the recalls or the unsafe vehicle things. Imagine if those never happened. I mean, we got to give Yamaha a little bit of credit. I mean, yeah, would I buy a white
credit? I think,
but man, they started this. They're the ones started it. And you're talking earlier. We have friends that they had $35,000 rhinos. I mean, we're talking stereos and Edelbrock carburetors, and everybody put the bench seat in the back, which was completely unsafe. And
the cage,
shocks,
the seats, Kings.
They're putting King shocks on these things so they can get
an extra 29-inch tires,
1 inch of travel, and pay $3,000 for a set of shocks just to get an extra 1 inch of travel. And I had family that had one, and custom paint, like, it's crazy the things that they did to these things. And then your top speed was like 35 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour. But at that time, I can still remember riding in that thing and thinking, oh my gosh, I want one of these so bad. I envied my brother-in-law with his so much. Like, man, I wish I could afford one of these. And I mean, I kind of maybe exaggerated on the price a little bit, but we're still $20,000 once he got it all done with a cage and everything, and thinking $20,000. And now you can't bat an eye on any side by side for $20,000,
It's
so
definitely proof of concept. That's what the people wanted. They wanted a 2 to 4 seat vehicle they could go have fun in the desert with. That was reliable. And it's funny you talk about all those prices and value. I remember like working at Polaris, and we had all this sales data, right? Like $22,000, 4-seat 1,000. That was like really what made a lot of sense for a lot of customers, right? Like the payment that they could afford and all that type of stuff. So then when the X3 comes out, it's like, oh man, here we go. They take it to 72. They take it to 154 horse. I remember the 4-seater coming out at $30,000, and I'm like, wow, man, that's pretty steep. And they sold every single one because, at that point, people like, look, it's already got a long travel kit on it, right? It's already got more power. It looks amazing. It's already got nice seats. It already has a roof. Like, they could see the value in it coming from, if there were OGs back in the 800 or Rhino days, it was like, and then, then this kind of reinvigorates this awesome CanAm Polaris battle, which, Polaris had the far upper hand in until the X3 came to town. What was that? 2017, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And, man.
Well, that 2016 4-seater, 28.5 is what the price market was on it, or price point on it. And now, they've come out with better cars and more, bougie cars with better stuff like the Turbo S and things like that. And now that same car that you would have got in 2016 is now a lot cheaper. But, Polaris owned the market. They could have set the price whatever they wanted, and people were going to buy them.
People would buy them.
Because banks are ready to finance, and people are ready to pay 25% interest. So they don't care. People don't care.
It's still way cheaper and a lot easier to own and operate than a pre-runner.
Yep.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, for sure. You can take it anywhere you want to go.
Capable.
You can finance them. You can put insurance on them. And, hey, that's all you need, right?
If you live in Arizona, you can drive it to work.
Yeah.
So if you guys are watching this video, listening to this podcast, obviously we're preaching the choir. You guys got into this probably for the same reason as us. And we could talk all day about how much we love our vehicles. Real quick, Wes, what vehicles do you have these days? And Andrew, yourself.
All right. So in my garage right now, I have that original 2016 4-seat turbo. And, it's all done up and, done so many things to it, most of the necessity things that I wanted, but, it's really set up to be a fun car, doors, cage, light bars, everything that, everybody else, looks to get. And then I also have a 2020 Turbo S4. You guys might have seen it on the Chupacabra posts. It's the digital camo one. Super excited about it. I love that car. It's just so fun. It's just amazing to have both of them, to see how far, like I talked about, the technology has come. And yeah, who knows what I'll get next. I mean, I was playing around with the idea of getting rid of the 16 and maybe getting something else, another one to have in the garage, but we'll see where it goes. But yeah, this side-by-side game is crazy, and I don't see it slowing down, and I'm happy with what I have, especially right now. That new Turbo S is cherry, pretty nice.
So starting off with me, of course, that 2016 non-turbo, did a lot to it, put a cage, seats, it did a lot of other stuff, arms, wheels, tires, the whole 9 yards. A year later, turned around and then traded it in and got a 2017 turbo 2-seater. Again, Nick got me into that turbo game. Went out to Arizona to go see
2017
him.
Turbo was a good car.
Went out there to go see him. He had his 2017 4-seater, and as soon as I jumped in that thing and he took me for a ride, I was hooked. The power difference between the 110 horsepower and what was it at the time, the 150? Was it the
168?
Yeah.
168, yeah. I was like, oh my God, this thing is crazy powerful. So went down to Coin and Coin Power Sports here in El Centro and traded it in. I got out of the game actually for about a year. I started a new career and I moved up north, and that's when Nick hit me up to actually join Chupacabra, and he needed some help with it, and he knew I was super passionate about this sport. After that, he kept hounding me, hey, when you coming back down to the Southwest? Finally moved back here last year, 2019, and as you know now, my car is one of the Chup Turbo twins, the blue one, of course. But yeah, I love that thing. Also in the works as we speak is a 2019? No, I think it's a 2020 X3.
Join the dark side.
The dark side, as you've seen in some of our videos. Starting to build that as a race car. We got a lot of videos coming soon with that, showing the progression of that build. Really looking forward to releasing that car once it's finished. I think you guys will really like it. But it's definitely a money pit, this sport, and I wouldn't change it for the world. Some days I'm like, it sucks. It's so much money, but when I get a finished product, I love seeing it. Especially you guys, when you guys comment on our pictures and be like, oh my God, you made me get that Madigan cage. People, hey, asking me questions about how I did the wiring on the car. I love talking about that stuff. So if you guys have any questions about any of our cars, don't hesitate to ask.
Yeah, and money pit is the sport's pretty darn affordable until you get into the race world. So if you guys have seen us on social or followed the YouTube channel, you guys probably know I have a race car. I got to go work on it tomorrow morning. Andrew and I are meeting up with Queen Racing and Havasu to get that thing tuned, put a fresh motor in it. And if you guys watch the channel, pay attention for a while. A year and a half ago, I was at an event, Tierra del Sol, and I won a Razor with the raffle with $50 of raffle tickets. Yeah, rather be lucky than good. So it was a 2-seater. I sold it and bought the 4-seater that I have today, the 2019 Turbo S. So I've got two cars.
Tell us what side-by-sides you've owned since you bought your first one and started with Polaris, and you owned a couple Aces, and you owned a Ranger also, I believe, right?
Yeah, so just working with Polaris, one of the best parts of the job was just having access to demo vehicles and a trailer and a gas card, like I said, to go enjoy them. So, started off in 2013. I got the 2014 Razor 1000, the white and red one. And then I had like a Sport 8. The cool thing was you get like a Ranger, an ATV, and a Razor. So I had an ATV and a Ranger. And then the next year, 2015, I got the blue 4-seat 1000, the Voodoo Blue. That was a cool car. Got it all lights on it, a bunch of fun Glamis trips. Actually took that car to Pismo one time. And then that year was the first year Polaris came out with the little Ace 570. And I was like a big fan of the little Ace because, like dirt bike guy. And it was a fun little car. I mean, your back would be all super sore, like when I was going through the desert with Andrew. But that was fun. And then 2016, the 2-seat Razor Turbo, the orange one like we discussed, as well as the 4-seat. Polaris let me get 2 Razors because I lived in a predominantly Razor sales market, which was really rad. And then at the time, that had an upgraded accessory, the cool high and low speed compression, adjustable Fox shock. So that was really cool. I've always been a suspension nerd from my mountain bike days, and got to go testing with Wayne Israelson, who you've probably seen on some of our videos. That was back when he worked for Fox. I got to meet him through the Polaris connection. So it was like a no-brainer when it came to like tuning our cars and tuning our race car, like getting to spend a little half a day with Wayne. Like, this guy is the truth. He won the Mint 400 with Rob Mack a couple of years ago. The guy's just been around it his whole life and is just an amazing tuner and a cool guy above all. So that was really cool. I learned a lot over these years. I'm like learning, hey man, this car's bottom out a lot in Glamis and stuff, So getting better at it each year, trying different accessories. And then 2018, Got the next year 2017 Razor Turbo in the 2018 Ford. So that 168 car,
I
Polaris
loved your car.
on the 2016s, and the 17 was really dialed. That had that little extra pep and no cooling issues. That car, I put a cool Madigan cage on it. It was a good looking car, and got the shocks a lot more tuned in. And then quit Polaris, got a 2018 Razor 4 Turbo, which right when I started the YouTube channel a couple of years ago. Had the BFG KR2 desert tires. Those tires are awesome. It's a real budget build. It had an SDR cage, but everything on it was like, no electronics or nothing. Just like an awesome, probably the best car for the value I've ever owned. I just did a spring kit. So the shocks are okay, but for what it was, I took that thing to Moab and it ripped. Mexico, that car was such an awesome car. I never had one issue with it. Stock clutching, stock motor with those BFGs. It was money. I was almost sad to see that one go. And then that became, after I sold that, and then it became the money put in to get the race car going. And the race car got built late 2018. And then I thought I had this crazy pie in the sky dream that race car was going to be like a super pre-runner. We were going to put a roof rack on it, and we were going to take it to Baja, and we were going to go take it to Glamis. Like, I didn't even know what I was thinking. It was like this dream. Like, oh, I think I saw someone took a UTV race car and then took it to Glamis, so I'll do that. And then I'll have the big gas tanks. So we'll be taking on big trips, and it'll be my do-it-all. And I had a rack made for the back for a cooler. And it's crazy that I even took that car on Arizona Peace Trail, man. Like, I had so many issues with that car, and I got it running, and then I took it on this trip, and these guys.
I'm surprised it made it.
Yeah, I blew one fuse, the fuel pump, get on the gas hard, and then lost the fuel pump, 10 amp fuse. But it was a little harsh for that trip, as you guys could imagine. And then, like I said, I got lucky and won that raffle, because I probably would have sold the race car because I could really only afford to have one car. I think it's important to put the money in the business and grow the business and add more products and add more staff, so we can grow. And that's where we're at the moment. I did put a deposit down on the new Speed, so I am a believer. Selling one or both of the Razors at some point this year or next year. I think I'm going to keep the Turbo S because we have some trips coming up, like even with COVID throwing a wrench and everything. There's a Mexico ride coming up. Rocky Point to Algopa, I told you guys about, my friends are doing. We'll be at Glamis, probably Camp Razor, no matter what, I'm assuming, unless we bail out last minute, we'll probably be there, So I want to have the Speed in my garage before I sell the Turbo S, And then with the race car, I love it, but, I'm not sure what the future holds because it's been so much money, again, so much time and resources to get that thing going. But we definitely plan on getting that thing. Hopefully after this week, she's going to be running good, and we'll be some races going here, later this year, September, October, November.
After tomorrow, after you get this thing tuned and you're dialed, that dude's a genius. Like, and I think he's going to get you guys set up. I think all the bugs, all the little things, quirks that we found on your race car, are now going to be gone. And I don't know. You need to get a couple of good races in, and then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully, hopefully we'll be at UTV Worlds this year.
Yeah, I mean, we're just learning so much. Honestly, the race cars taught me so much. All those cars I just mentioned, hardly had any issues with all of them. So, when you understand some of the wiring issues, and we have had, weird stuff happen, like my starter, the bolts to hold it on and it breaks. Like so many times that car has left me pushing it. But I've learned so much, and now I'm that guy like on the side of the trail that can probably help with a lot of Razor stuff. Maybe not so much CanAm, but I haven't told you guys, but I talked to Mark Queen. He wants me to run race gas. I went and bought 15 gallons today, so we're mixing that 50-50 because the car is a lot easier to tune.
It'll just make your car run a lot cooler.
Yeah, we got the oil cooler now, so we had 2 more quarts of oil. And then I just got some Tensor 33s in method, so we'll talk about that. You see a video, but those guys did take care of us with a sponsorship deal, so reached out to a couple of companies that we really liked.
Damn, I didn't even know about this.
She got the.
That's because you have your own race car to build.
So it made sense to get the tires on before Queen tunes the clutch and all that, So we got 8 freshy tires, and as if you guys have been following the channel, Andrew and I have had those tires on our cars and really liked them. They wear, probably a little quicker than BFGs, but as a whole, they seem to work really well. And the race car feels a little skatey in the front end, so we might still need to do a steering rack in the front. I hope not, but I
think we just need to put a new rack in it. That's it.
Yeah. So. Andrew and I are ready, man. We're gonna try to do like AMA District 38, a little small race, and hopefully she runs way better than she ever has. We get her up over 90, and the car stays cool, and then that goes well here in the next few weeks. So we'll try to make a run at UTV Worlds, man, and enjoy the fruits of our labor of so many trials and tribulations of getting this car running in her glory. Because ever since we got it wrapped, she was a pretty car, but we wanted her to run good, and now she's looking good from the inside out. Andrew rewired her and got the Switch Pros. The car is like, I don't. It's
progressed 100%.
Should be competitive, and the suspension is so good now compared to what it was. Man, that thing it's so different, guys. If you ever get a chance to ride in one, you just got to really like strangle that thing and like push it really, really hard. It doesn't start working good until you start going really fast.
It's pretty amazing what the side-by-side race cars can do nowadays, and it's sad is that it's just getting faster and faster. It's crazy.
So much.
In the last year, the production turbo class it's crazy how fast we're going now. It's crazy, scary.
Yeah, that's a whole other podcast we'll save. We're out of time, but Wes is big into UTV racing. Andrew's working on it, or Andrew is in it. He and I together, so as well as he's working on a few cars. So we'll definitely get into the trenches of a couple good racing episodes for sure. But thanks everyone for tuning in. If you guys have been still on, thanks for supporting the brand and the channel, and we'll get a lot more into a lot of different topics. Go ahead and leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Any topics you guys want to hear us discuss. We'll get into some of the live feed. You guys ask us questions on the fly, and it's fun. We love the community. We're super passionate about it. We like creating content that we don't think anybody else is really doing, or at least has our own flavor. Like there's room for everybody. I think in this community, we're all like, all of us YouTubers or whatever you want to call all of us, we're all like different flavors of ice cream, and there's something for everybody. And we just kind of live off of what we're into, which is Southwest. You guys heard the backstory of our roots and what we're into. We're Ricky racers right now, and may or may not be for the foreseeable future, but love all of it, man. We just can't get enough of it. And again, appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thanks, guys, for joining me tonight, and look forward to this. Is fun, man. We got to keep
we got to keep doing this. This is a good time.
People, it's fun just chit chatting, especially with COVID, man. We probably missed a lot of trips already this year that we probably would have connected on, whether that be Moab. I was telling these guys we got to go to Moab. It was one of the best places I ever got to go, and
canceled.
Twice. So now we got Sand Show, hopefully in Arizona. If it doesn't get canceled, we're gonna be a legit brand. We're gonna have our own booth this year. We're getting displays made, new product launches. We're working on a lot of new products, guys. It's been slow, but I'm telling you, we're on to some cool stuff now. So,
and if it gets canceled, we're doing a meet and greet ride, doing something down there with somebody or something, because enough's enough.
I'm itching to get back out. So I'm just going on some good rides with you guys, and now the weather's going to break here, hopefully here pretty soon, and we'll get back to it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right,
appreciate it, man.
Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you guys next time.
All right.